All right, today we're going to pull back the curtain on some of the hidden science that makes modern surgery so incredibly safe. It's a concept called pre-oxygenation.
So let me just start by asking you a question. What do you think is the single most important breath you will ever take in your entire life? Well, believe it or not, the answer might just be those few deep breaths you take in the minutes right before going under anesthesia. And we are about to break down exactly why. Okay, let's get into it. To really understand why those breaths are so critical, you have to picture something that's always happening inside your body, its own internal ticking clock.
The very second you're given anesthesia and you stop breathing on your own, a timer starts. See, your body is a relentless machine. It burns through about 250 milliliters of oxygen every single minute, whether you're awake or asleep. That demand never, ever stops. So, how do anesthesiologists buy time against that relentless clock? Well, it's an incredibly elegant solution. They basically help you build your very own internal oxygen tank. And that process is called pre-oxygenation. It's the simple but absolutely brilliant act of having you breathe 100% pure oxygen for a few minutes. The goal here isn't just to bump up your blood oxygen a little bit. No, the goal is to completely transform your lungs into a rich, life-sustaining oxygen reservoir.
And this is the perfect way to think about it. By flooding your lungs with pure O2, you're essentially packing them so full of oxygen that they act like a temporary internal scuba tank, ready to supply your body long after you've stopped taking breaths on your own.
Now check this out, because this is where the physics gets really cool. When you're breathing normal room air, the oxygen pressure in your lungs is sitting around 100 millimeters of mercury. But after just a few minutes of pre-oxygenation, boom, that pressure skyrockets to over 600. We're talking about a six-fold increase in the driving force that's pushing oxygen into your bloodstream. It's a total game changer. Okay, so we've filled the tank. Now let's see what that actually buys you. This is all about creating an incredible safety buffer that protects you when you're most vulnerable. To make this super simple, let's use another analogy. Just picture your blood oxygen level, that little number on the hospital monitor, as the fuel gauge in your car. Because we just filled that scuba tank in your lungs to the absolute brim, your body can just sip from that reserve for a surprisingly long time. And during this period, the fuel gauge, your oxygen level, stays pinned right up there near 100%. This is that critical safety window. And this is the fascinating part. Once that reservoir starts to run low and the gauge finally starts to move down from 100%, it doesn't just drift. It plummets. It falls off a cliff. And this isn't just a clever analogy. This is the real science of how your blood carries oxygen. It holds on tight for as long as it possibly can, but once it starts to let go, it lets go of almost everything all at once. So this system seems pretty foolproof, doesn't it? Well, yeah, for most people. But for some patients, that ticking clock is moving much, much faster. Let's compare. A healthy adult usually has a good-sized lung reservoir and a pretty standard oxygen burn rate. But for patients with certain conditions like obesity or for someone who's pregnant, the physics just changes. They often have a smaller oxygen tank to start with, and their body is burning through that oxygen faster. The race just got a whole lot shorter. So what does this mean in real time? For that healthy adult, a perfect pre-oxygenation can provide a safe window of about 6 minutes before those oxygen levels start to drop. In a critical situation, 6 minutes is an eternity. But for that high-risk patient, that safety window can shrink dramatically, sometimes to less than 1 minute. Just imagine that, less than 60 seconds to secure a patient's airway. The stakes are incredibly high. So why the huge difference? Well, it really comes down to a perfect storm of two factors. First, their body just has a higher demand for oxygen. And second, they have a smaller lung reservoir to draw from. It's kind of like trying to drive a gas guzzler with a tiny little fuel tank. You're just going to run out of gas a whole lot faster. So when faced with that kind of challenge, what do? Well, this is where anesthesiologists break out the advanced toolkit to give every single patient the biggest safety buffer possible.
Yeah, for these situations where the clock is ticking faster, the anesthesiology team really does act like a high-performance pit crew, using some amazing technology to give their patient a critical head start in this race against time.
And this is where the technology is just so cool. On one hand, you have something called non-invasive ventilation, which uses a pressurized mask to literally prop the lungs open. physically making that oxygen reservoir bigger. On the other hand, you have high-flow nasal oxygen, which uses this powerful, warm, humid stream of O2 to flush out all the old, stale air. And get this, it can even continue to passively push oxygen into the lungs while the team is working. It's just incredible stuff.
So let's bring this all together. All of this science, from basic physiology to this really advanced technology, it's all for one single vital purpose.
You know, there's a great quote that says, "Preoxygenation is physiology in action." It's not just a routine procedure, it's a direct, practical application of our deep understanding of how the human body works under pressure.
And that is the ultimate takeaway here. This careful, meticulous preparation, this hidden science, is what transforms what could be a moment of extreme vulnerability into a controlled, managed, and overwhelmingly safe medical experience.
Kind of makes you wonder, right? What other invisible preparations, these amazing blends of simple principles and advanced tech, are quietly at work all around us, making our modern world safer every single day?